We're at the end of a very impressive lineup of healthcare speakers, from innovators and enterprises to pharma and hospital systems, and we got a glimpse of what disruptions and trends are emerging from the pandemic. The next session is focused on genomics and its impact on the world. Our closing keynote is Francis deSouza, President and CEO of Illumina. An entrepreneur at heart, focused on innovation and impact, Francis has helped bring about a genomic revolution. With innovation as a guiding North Star, Francis has steered Illumina to grow, scale, and elevate. His efforts have been rewarded as Illumina was named as one of the 100 most influential companies by Time magazine. Because of his early action, we had the sequence of the Covid-19 genome in January last year and a commercial vaccine in less than a year, as opposed to the 10 years it usually takes. What an impressive feat. Please join me in welcoming Francis deSouza, President and CEO of Illumina.
Thank you for inviting me to speak with you at TiEcon 2021. It's a privilege and an honor. The COVID-19 pandemic touched all of us, but not equally. Today, in some countries, the newly vaccinated hug their loved ones after a long period of separation. But in countries like India, distraught families are losing loved ones in record numbers. The world's second most populous nation is in crisis. Its healthcare on the brink of collapse. Sick people are being turned away from hospitals that have run out of beds and oxygen as the number of new cases rises to record levels each day. These statistics are overwhelming. Most of us identify with the realities of what's happening, not by the statistics, but by a person. My aunt in her 90s, Alda, lives in Goa. I speak to her frequently, and she's really scared about what's going on. She hasn't been vaccinated and has no information about when she would be vaccinated. And all of us know stories of loved ones that haven't made it through the pandemic. India is the world's largest vaccine producer, but it currently doesn't have enough doses for its own people. Only about 9% of the country has been vaccinated, and India has suspended vaccine exports and is looking to import doses from other countries. The crisis in India requires a coordinated global response because none of us are safe until we are all safe. Across the world, COVID-19 has taken over 3 million lives. Loved ones lost, children orphaned, so many reeling from unemployment, poverty, and the immense suffering that the pandemic has inflicted upon the world. Healthcare workers on the front lines bravely and tirelessly put patients' needs in front of their own. Many of them have lost their own lives as they fought to save the lives of others, and none of us will forget this tragic time in history. But 2020 will also be remembered as a transformative year for medicine, for genomics, and for humanity. We're emerging from the pandemic into the 21st century, just like World War I effectively launched the 20th century. From the emergence of new nations to the battle for women's rights. World War I accelerated groundbreaking technologies, including airplanes, blood banks, TB screening, typhoid vaccines, disinfectants, and prosthetics. The changes brought about by that inventor's war were so profound that one historian remarked, soldiers rode in on horses and flew out on planes. The groundbreaking scientific and medical stories of this pandemic across pathogen surveillance, research, vaccine and therapy development, testing and screening are catalyzing a new era in human health. Researchers quickly identified the causative pathogen of this pandemic, teased apart the virus's genetic makeup, understood how it damages the human body, and monitored its evolution and spread. Scientists created life-saving diagnostic tools, vaccines, and therapies in record time. This collaborative effort across boundaries has changed science and medicine forever. In the fall of 2019, we at Illumina worked with the Chinese health authorities to help identify the cause of the pneumonia of unknown origin in Wuhan. And on January 10th, 2020, they published the sequence of the causative pathogen, SARS-CoV-2, a coronavirus. This publication launched a global race for diagnostic tests, therapies, and vaccines. Now, vaccine development is a complex process, typically lasting 10 to 15 years, and we've never had a coronavirus vaccine before. Genomics, change this forever. Less than a year after the first case was reported to the WHO, vaccines were starting to be rolled out globally, an incredible scientific and medical achievement. What's especially amazing is that Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech never had the live virus on their site. Their mRNA vaccines, the first ones ever, are completely based on genomic information coming off Illumina sequencers. Moderna and BioNTech are also developing mRNA-based personalized cancer vaccines, and a team at Yale is currently testing an mRNA vaccine for malaria, which kills more than 400,000 people each year, nearly half of which are children. Genomic epidemiology has also been critical to understanding the virus transmission, and it's emerging as a key tool to stop the spread of potential deadly diseases. Last year, India's Institute of Genomics and Integrative Biology completed a clinical validation of Illumina's COVID-seq to expand India's COVID testing capability during the first wave. COVID-seq not only gives you a diagnostic result, but also confirms the presence of the virus and gives you its genome, providing valuable resources for tracking its spread. We at Illumina are now working with the CSIR and Department of Biotech in India to enable surveillance across 8 sites across India, being run by the Indian SARS-CoV-2 Genomics Consortium, who have been sanctioned by the government to test 120,000 positive samples using next-generation sequencing. The Covid19 Genomics Consortium in the UK, the Functional Genomics Center in Zurich, and others have set up genomic sequencing for nationwide surveillance around the world to track variants as they emerge. The fact that we can identify variants in real time and use their information to make RNA booster shots within days is remarkable. The pandemic also accelerated CRISPR's entry into the clinic, also accelerated the entry of genome editing into the clinic. At Oregon Health and Science University, a person with a genetic condition that causes blindness became the first person to receive a CRISPR-Cas9 gene therapy administered directly into their body. Victoria Gray became the first person to be cured of sickle cell anemia by a CRISPR therapy. And one day, CRISPR may also help cure genetic diseases like cystic fibrosis and muscular dystrophy. We're also seeing the next generation of CRISPR technology emerge, enabling new applications beyond the pandemic. Another trend catalyzed by the pandemic is the acceleration of liquid biopsies, blood-based NGS testing for therapy selection and monitoring of cancer patients. There's growing scientific and clinical support for liquid biopsies, and diagnostic workflows for metastatic cancers are emerging. Eventually, blood-based testing could replace radiology to monitor patients while under therapy. And we're on the cusp of transforming cancer survivability with early detection. Detecting cancer early saves lives. For many cancers identified in stage 1, the 5-year survival rate is more than 80%. However, if cancer is detected at stage 4, the 5-year survival rate declines to only 18%. Unfortunately, many cancers have no screening tests, and at least 2/3 of cancer deaths are attributable to tumors with no current recommended screening. Early cancer detection via a simple blood test is truly revolutionary and could avert more cancer-related deaths than all current screening, testing, treatment, and surgery standards combined. We're also recognizing the potential for genomics to fight complex diseases such as cardiovascular, kidney, and chronic lung diseases, diabetes, stroke, and Alzheimer's, conditions that impact 1/3 of all adults. Genomics is also playing an important role in combating climate change on our planet, one of the existential threats of our generation. Scientists are leveraging genomics to identify crops that tolerate higher temperatures and increase soil salinity. Genetic information can be used in breeding livestock to reduce methane emissions and to track fish populations and guide sustainable fishing practices. There is no part of the organic world that operates beyond the reach of genomics. Genomics has been integrated into clinical practice at a faster rate than almost any other innovation, inspiring worldwide hope. But there is a vital need to make genomic technology available to all, regardless of their social status, income, or geographic location. Our efforts to improve human health can be magnified if everyone has access to genomic technology. Over the last 20 years, we've made enormous clinical, scientific, and technical progress. We at Illumina have reduced the cost of genomic sequencing by over 99% since 2006, from $150,000 a genome to $600 a genome today. And we're committed to driving the cost down even further, to a $100 genome and beyond. And yet, less than 1% of the world has had their genome sequenced. Genomics has the potential to impact so many aspects of healthcare, but too few people are reaping the benefits. The pandemic has also highlighted these health inequities, with patients of color more likely to test positive for COVID-19 and suffer more severe health consequences. There's also a lack of diversity in genomic data, the vast majority of which overlooks minority populations. As genetic-based precision medicine grows, this data map means minorities may lack access to medical care that could reduce growing chronic disease disparities among racial and ethnic groups. Over the past year, we at Illumina have worked to increase access to sequencing globally. We donated sequencers and consumables to the Africa CDC to be distributed across 10 countries in Africa, where access to sequencing technology is limited. Illumina also committed $60 million to a global pathogen genomics initiative in partnerships with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and other public and private entities. We at Illumina have worked to increase access to sequencing globally. We donated sequencers and consumables to the Africa CDC to be distributed across Africa, where access to sequencing technology is limited. Illumina also committed $60 million to a global pathogen genomics initiative in partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and other private and public entities to create a genomic pathogen surveillance network around the world, building critical capability in areas of need, starting with a focus on South Asia. When we collaborate across borders and industries, we see a radical acceleration of science and technology, from years and months to weeks. The pandemic showed that rapid data sharing can provide massive benefits to science, and through science to all of technology. Scientists are producing a huge amount of complex data, but the promise of a fully open data sharing environment has not yet been fully realized. It's time to improve sharing practices to drive forward the discovery and our understanding of how to use data in healthcare. In much of the world, the historic COVID-19 vaccines are proving effective and bending the mortality curve. But the global pandemic is far from over. In a perfect world, none of us would still worry about family members across the world. But the only way out is through. The field of genomics has been accelerated, probably by about a decade in the last year. And while we're still at the very beginning of seeing the impact genomics will ultimately have on all of human health, we have the technology today to save millions of lives. What we need to do is pair the increased discovery with increased access to this technology. Increased access to genomics will not only save lives over the course of this pandemic, but in other areas of human health. And I'll close by telling you a story about two children impacted by genetic disease. In the first case, it's a story of a girl named Ellis. When she was 16 months old, she got an infection that she just couldn't shake, and she kept getting weaker. At 19 months, her parents took her to a neurologist. He said her symptoms would probably just clear up on their own, but they didn't. At 20 months, another neurologist misdiagnosed her, leading to months of ineffective treatment. Then, when Ellis was 25 months old, her mother saw a girl on television with symptoms just like Ellis. She had been diagnosed using genomic sequencing. Ellis's mom went to her doctors and demanded testing. Sequencing provided an answer. Ellis had riboflavin transporter deficiency type 2. The good news is that it's treatable with high dose of vitamin B2, but it couldn't reverse the damage that had already been done. Now, if Ellis had been diagnosed earlier, she might not have lost her hearing or the ability to walk or the use of her arms. If Ellis had been diagnosed at 19 months, she might not need to be fed through a tube. The right information at the right time can make all the difference. Around the time Ellis was searching for a diagnosis, A 3-year-old girl arrived at the pediatric intensive care unit in San Francisco with sudden heart and kidney failure and muscle problems. Her doctors suspected a mitochondrial disorder and told the family to prepare for the end. But the medical team had one last idea: genomic testing. The sequencing results revealed that the girl had a kidney disorder caused by a genetic mutation, not a mitochondrial condition. Now, she's only the 7th person in the world to be diagnosed with this disease. With the diagnosis known, the medical team was able to stabilize her and sent her home within 2 weeks. With a kidney transplant, she'll be able to live a normal, healthy life. Now, the miraculous part of this story wasn't that sequencing was able to find a diagnosis. That happens in about 50% of the cases with children with undiagnosed genetic diseases when they do genomic testing. The miracle was that her doctor knew about genomic testing and had the connections to get the testing she needed. That's not acceptable. Whether it's genomic vaccines against COVID-19 or diagnosis for genetic diseases, access to care shouldn't be a miracle. Thank you, and be well.
Thank you, Francis, for helping us better understand how genomic sequencing is driving the future of healthcare. You and your company's leadership in enabling precision and personalization of healthcare is crucial for humanity's healthy future. This concludes our Health Track session. On behalf of everyone at TiE, I want to thank all the speakers for sharing their insights with us today. We're all better informed and educated about how the future of healthcare is shaping up. It's our hope that today's conversation will inspire many healthcare entrepreneurs across the globe, which in turn will lead to solutions for some of our most pressing challenges. Thank you, everyone who attended this track. We look forward to seeing you again next year.